The John Ensign Senator sex scandal story that broke this week is still breaking. For 4 days running since the senator's announcement that he had had an affair with a married staffer, the story has gotten bigger every day and has started encroaching on other politicians and even onto some political institutions. As you know, Senator Ensign admitted Tuesday that he had an affair with a woman who worked for him and whose husband worked for him too. Complicating the workplace ethics issue there and the personal issue, Senator Ensign had previously called for Bill Clinton and Larry Craig to resign after their affairs were made public. So even on day one, the senator also had a hypocrisy problem. That said, ethics and hypocrisy problems are sort of dog bites man around here. And this story might have just gone away after day one, except it didn't. In the days that followed, we learned that the other woman saw her salary doubled during the period of the affair at her job on the senator's campaign committee and at her job on his political action committee. Hey, Ensign campaign donors, guess what you paid for? We also learned that during the affair, the mistress's 19-year-old son was given a paid job doing policy work at the National Republican Senatorial Committee. Chairman, John Ensign. Hey, Republican Party donors, guess what you paid for? And then there's the murky question of why Senator Ensign went public when he did. Earlier this week, NBC confirmed that the senator told his colleagues in the Senate that he went public when he did because his mistress was trying to extort money from him. That story changed yesterday when aides to Senator Ensign claimed that the senator decided to go public because Mr. Hampton, the husband of the mistress, was threatening to take his story to a television network. And that brings us to today, when we learned the basis of that claim. 5 days before Senator Ensign's announcement about the affair, the mistress's husband, a man named Doug Hampton, he wrote a letter to an anchor at the Fox News channel that said, quote, "Senator Ensign pursued and engaged in a relationship with my wife. This should not be how the leadership of our country should be allowed to behave. I need justice, help, and restitution for what Senator Ensign has done to me and my family." Now, Fox News today said they never received that letter. They did say that they got an email from Mr. Hampton about 24 hours before Senator Ensign went public about the affair. Fox said they did not tell Ensign's office about the tip that they got from Mr. Hampton. But that leaves unanswered the question of how exactly Senator Ensign, or at least his aides, knew that the affair was being pitched to a TV network, if the TV network itself says that they didn't tell the senator. Then tonight, Senator Ensign's office appears to have retreated to the original story, telling the Associated Press that Mr. Hampton demanded, quote, "cash and other financial benefits," although it still doesn't appear that Ensign has ever reported any attempted extortion to the police or the FBI. Extortion can be a felony. Senator Ensign's camp also today confirmed the bombshell report that the senator helped Mr. Hampton, Doug Hampton, the husband of the woman he was sleeping with, get a job after the affair with Hampton's wife had ended. The senator apparently recommended Mr. Hampton for a job at a Nevada consulting firm called November Inc. That's a private firm run by the two men who also ran the National Republican Senatorial Committee. Chairman, John Ensign. Aides to Senator Ensign say that the recommendation was routine, something he's done for a number of other staffers. Mr. Hampton eventually left November Inc. and then took a job at a company called Allegiant Airlines. According to campaign finance records, Allegiant's CEO and his wife are among John Ensign's biggest campaign donors. Ruh-roh. The implication, the worry, the question that John Ensign will have to answer now is, was he in some way paying off this family, either to buy their silence or for any other reason? And there's more, actually. In his letter to Fox News, Doug Hampton wrote that he confronted Senator Ensign about this affair in front of another Republican senator, in front of Oklahoma Senator Tom Coburn. All Senator Coburn has said about the Ensign affair publicly was what he told the Las Vegas Sun, quote, "He's a bright young man, and lots of people make mistakes." Whether Senator Coburn knew about Senator Ensign's possible malfeasance, about the pay raises or the job placement, remains unknown. Our calls to Senator Coburn's office today went unreturned. Where this story ends for Senator Ensign is one issue. It's a big issue. Where it ends for the rest of his party is another matter altogether. Joining us now to discuss that is Mark McKinnon, former media advisor for President George W. Bush and advisor to Senator John McCain. He's now a contributor to the Daily Beast. Mr. McKinnon, Mark, thanks for coming back on the show.
Evening, Rachel. How are you?
I'm good. I'm not a strategist about these sort of things, though. You have long been one of the most sought-after media strategists in the Republican Party. If you were handling this, how would you handle it?
I'd tell him to resign immediately, and I've actually called for him to do that. And that's before the problem got much worse, which it has in the last couple of days, as you just outlined. It's gone from an affair, which is bad, to some very serious allegations of conflict of interest. All of that is bad. All of that is serious business. But the real sin here is hypocrisy, and that's a real felony in politics. And for that, he should be dismissed, and he should dismiss himself, because he lives in a huge glass house, and he's been throwing not just rocks but boulders at other people like President Clinton and Larry Craig. And when Larry Craig had his problems, Senator Ensign said that if he ever found himself in a similar situation, he would hope that he would take it upon himself to resign. And he's in that position now, and he ought to do it.
Why do you think that other Republican elected officials have either no commented this or said positive things? There's not been a single negative comment. There's not been a single call for accountability, or let alone a call for resignation from any other Republicans.
I think the silence is inexcusable, and we've got to be able to call out our own bad apples when they turn out to be rotten, and this is a rotten apple. We shouldn't have to remind our elected officials, who should be held to a higher standard, we shouldn't have to remind them of their firmly held convictions. This is a guy who campaigned on higher standards and accused others of hypocrisy, and now he's guilty of himself, and we should call him out on it.
On the issue of campaign funds and Republican Party funds, that's beyond hypocrisy. That's beyond the personal failing of the affair. That's even beyond that's even sort of beyond just the workplace affair ethical issues. Should the party be answering for that in a certain way? I mean, it seems that this 19-year-old young man, the son of the woman he was sleeping with, was on the Republican Party's payroll as a policy expert of some kind. Should the NRSC be commenting about that?
Well, listen, at the very least, the Republican leadership and institutions should be calling aggressively for an investigation, an ethics investigation, to quickly get to the bottom of these allegations, because on the surface they seem very serious, and they ought to be thoroughly vetted and investigated until we know the facts.
Mark, let me ask you about the larger political impact here. It seems to me that the overarching political question, and it's not about John Ensign specifically, but it is about the Republican Party and how they've handled issues like this over time, and it calls into the question Senator David Vitter and his persistence in the Senate, as well as John Ensign. As the Democratic Party considers whether or not to move forward with things like repealing the Defense of Marriage Act, repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell, extending federal benefits to same-sex couples, those have been issues on which Republicans have traditionally opposed them, not on fiscal bases or other things like that. They've opposed them essentially on family values. Do scandals like this have an effect on the Republican Party's ability to fight back against issues like that they don't want to see changed?
No question. I think that it has an eroding effect. You simply can't be the party of family values and turn around and not value your family, which is precisely what's happening with John Ensign here. Ironically, we just put John Ensign on our top 10 of rising stars, on our top 10 list for candidates for 2012. And so this is just another example of a rising political star crashing to earth with his ankles and his ethics wrapped around his feet.
Mark McKinnon, former media advisor for President George W. Bush and for Senator John McCain. Thanks very much for your time tonight, Mark. Thanks for spending part of your Friday with us.